Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get right to the core of things. Have you ever just been totally lost in a movie? Or, found yourself really hanging on every word when a friend tells a story? Or even just notice those little narratives, the ones you tell yourself, how they kind of steer your day? Something we all feel, right? That pull of a good story. Today, we're diving into a really eye-opening book, Jonathan Gottschall's The Storytelling Animal. And our mission here is pretty straightforward and unpack his main message, figure out why these ideas feel so urgent now, and give you some solid takeaways, tools really to navigate all the stories shaping your life. Get ready, because there are some surprising ideas in here, things that might honestly shift how you think about, well, human nature itself. Okay, so let's unpack this. Jonathan Gottschall, in The Storytelling Animal, what's the big question he's wrestling with? What problem was he trying to solve?
Right. It's not just, another book about stories. He's digging into this fundamental riddle. Why do humans tell stories? Constantly, compulsively, in every single culture we know of. If you think about it from a purely survival angle, it doesn't seem immediately useful.
Yeah, like our ancestors had real threats, right? Predators, starvation.
Exactly. Yet they spent huge amounts of time on myths, rituals, campfire tales. Why bother? That's the puzzle he starts with.
That's a great way in because it immediately bumps up against how we usually think of ourselves as primarily rational creatures.
Totally. That was the standard view for ages,
Yeah.
humans, as these logical, self-interested beings. But Gottschall looks at everything, our myths, our dreams, novels, movies, even just scrolling social media. And he basically says, nope, that's not the whole picture.
Yeah.
He argues we're storytelling animals first. Homo fictus, he calls us. He saw some big blind spots in how we understood ourselves.
Blind spots, like what?
Yeah.
Because you'd think something so central like story, we'd have a good handle on it.
You would think. But first, science hadn't really nailed why storytelling is so universal. Why do people everywhere put so much energy into fiction? And maybe more importantly, why do our brains react like it's real? We cry at movies, our hearts race. That's a huge cognitive investment.
Okay, so the why was missing.
Yeah. And second, the purpose was often just dismissed, like stories are just fun, right? Entertainment, a nice break from real life.
Yeah.
But Gottschall felt it had to be deeper, something evolutionary. It's too widespread across all cultures to just be a hobby.
Makes sense.
And finally, he pointed out we often ignore the dark side. We love talking about empathy and connection through stories. But what about propaganda, misinformation, stories that tear people apart? He wanted to look at how stories manipulate us, for good and bad. So his big idea, his thesis, is that we are Homo fictus, creatures who live and breathe story. It's as vital as sleep or food. And he pulls from everywhere to back this up: neuroscience, psychology, evolution, literature, pop culture, showing stories aren't escapism, they're survival tools.
Wow. So if that's true, if we're fundamentally wired for story, what does that mean for us? For how we see the world, how we see ourselves? It feels like a pretty big shift.
Oh, it absolutely is. It means our basic way of operating isn't pure logic. It's narrative construction. Our brains are constantly spinning yarns, trying to connect the dots, find meaning, make sense of things, even when the sense isn't quite, factual. Knowing that really helps you see things differently. Your own mind, the world around you. It gives you a new lens.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating for me. Because Gottschall doesn't just lay out this theory. He actively goes after some myths, some really ingrained ideas most of us probably hold about stories and even ourselves. Which of these myths do you think are the most crucial for people to understand?
That's a great question. He takes down quite a few sacred cows. Let's dig into a couple of the really impactful ones. Okay, first big one. Fiction is just escapism or entertainment. The idea that reading a novel or watching a movie is kind of frivolous, just a distraction, Gottschall's take. No way. Story is fundamental. It's an evolutionary tool. Fiction builds empathy. It sharpens our problem-solving skills. It lets us practice complex social situations without, real-world consequences.
Like a simulator.
Exactly. He calls it a mental flight simulator. It builds our emotional muscles, our ability to understand others. It's serious practice for being human.
That's such a powerful way to put it. A mental flight simulator really reframes how you think about binge watching a show, doesn't it? But okay, if we're wired that way, what about our rationality? Because another myth he tackles is that rationality rules the mind. We're supposed to be logical.
That's a huge one we tell ourselves. We like to think logic is in the driver's seat, but Gottschall flips it. He argues we're storytellers first, then reasoners. Our minds are narrative engines first, constantly trying to make sense of chaos by weaving tales, even if those tales are, well, flawed. We prefer a coherent story, even a wrong one, over just random facts.
So reason comes later to justify the story.
Often, yeah.
Hmm.
Our reason often works to rationalize the stories we already buy into, rather than building beliefs from pure logic. That's why just throwing facts at someone rarely changes their mind. You need a better story.
Right. Okay. So we're not just consuming stories, we're creating them, especially about ourselves. Which brings me to the third myth that really struck me. The self is a stable, factual identity. We kind of cling to this idea of a core, unchanging me.
And Gottschall says, well, that's another story we tell ourselves. His view is the self is actually a shifting story. It's an ongoing work of fiction, constantly being revised. He puts it bluntly. The self is a story one we revise, embellish, and edit as needed. Yeah, it means your past isn't some fixed recording. It's a narrative you're always tweaking, which is what's kind of liberating, right? You can rewrite your story.
Yeah, definitely. But also a bit unsettling.
A little unsettling, too, because it shows how flexible our own truth can be, even about who we are.
Okay, one more myth, because I think this is crucial, especially now. The idea that stories are always good, they bring us together. We tend to romanticize story, don't we?
We absolutely do. And while stories can be incredibly powerful for good, inspiring us, uniting us, Gottschall stresses, they are fundamentally double-edged swords. They can divide, they can deceive, they can destroy just as easily as they uplift. Think propaganda, hate speech, conspiracy theories. That's all narrative too.
So we need to be aware of both sides.
Exactly. He urges us to be enchanted, yes, but also wary. Knowing these things, these debunked myths, it just helps you see the world and maybe your own mind with a much clearer, more critical eye.
So bringing this all together, what does it mean for us right now? Why does this book feel even more urgent today than maybe when it first came out?
Well, if you look at the bigger picture, Gottschall's ideas feel incredibly relevant, maybe even more so in this, what people call the post-truth era. When the book was published, we already consumed a lot of stories, but now it feels like we're drowning in them.
Totally. Social media feeds, news alerts, memes, ads.
WhatsApp rumors, everything. It's incessant. There's almost no escape from narrative anymore.
And the stakes feel higher too, don't they? It's not just entertainment. These stories are actively shaping reality.
Precisely. Storytelling has become, well, weaponized in many ways. Political movements often rise and fall based on the power of their narrative, not just the facts. You see how fake news spreads faster than truth? It's often because it's a better story, simpler, more emotional, hooks into our biases.
It taps into that wiring Gottschall talks about.
Exactly. And our identities are constantly being shaped, sometimes really shaken, by the stories we encounter online. Stories about who we should be, who to fear, what's really going on. It creates this weird dynamic and empathy crisis on one hand, because the echo chambers can shrink our worlds, but also an empathy opportunity if we seek out diverse stories.
So the relevance now is about navigating this flood, learning how to swim in this sea of stories.
Yes. Learning to spot the narrative, question it, choose what you consume consciously. That's critical. It's the difference between your world shrinking or expanding. And that idea of the self as a story. It's never been more important for, mental health and resilience. The stories we tell ourselves, am I a victim, a survivor, a hero? Those internal narratives have immense power. So much of therapy or personal growth is about reframing that inner story.
Right.
Gottschall basically said, paraphrasing here, we've built this world where stories fly at light speed, shaping everything from elections to our self-esteem. If we don't get how story works on us, through us, we're basically puppets.
That's a really strong way to put it. It makes story literacy sound less like an academic thing and more like a basic survival skill, like spotting a phishing email.
It really is. You can't navigate the modern world effectively without it.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. Thinking about today, right now, if Gottschall were putting out an updated version, especially with AI exploding, what new stuff do you think he'd absolutely have to include? Synthetic storytelling, all that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he'd have a field day, wouldn't he? There'd be huge sections on AI, deepfakes, synthetic storytelling. Imagine machines writing novels that feel human, chatbots spinning incredibly persuasive tales, deepfakes creating video memories of things that never, ever happened.
That raises some pretty scary questions, honestly. If a machine can make a story just for me or make a video look real, how do we know it's true anymore?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? Can we even trust our eyes and ears? Can AI tell a truly human story, or is it just sophisticated mimicry? And how do we defend against synthetic narratives that might feel more real than reality because they perfectly play on our biases? He'd definitely dive deep into algorithmic narratives too, social media echo chambers.
Ah, right. Because our feeds aren't neutral ground, they're curated.
They're curated by algorithms that know exactly what kinds of stories grab us, keep us scrolling, keep us outraged. That shapes our reality tunnels, right?
Yeah.
Often feeding us more of what we already believe, pushing out challenging views. Are we choosing our stories or are algorithms choosing them for us?
A question of agency.
A huge question. And he'd surely focus intensely on conspiracy theories as these incredibly viral narratives. We see it all the time, how powerful and infectious a wild emotional story can be. Spreads way faster than any fact check.
So how do we build immunity?
That's what he'd be asking. How do we build story immunity without clamping down on vital freedoms? It's a massive challenge. I think his conclusion would be the fundamental power of story hasn't changed, but its speed, its reach, its risks. They've gone supernova, making story literacy even more vital for survival.
Okay, we've gone from evolution all the way to AI. That's a lot of ground. So let's try to distill this. If you could give our listener a practical toolkit based on Gottschall's insights, what would be the top, say, 5 key takeaways, things to really hold on to?
Right. Boiling it down, how can you actually use this stuff? Okay, here are 5 core ideas from the storytelling animal that I think are really empowering. 1, story is our native language. Just accept it. We're storytelling animals before we're rational ones. Our brains crave narrative for meaning, connection, survival. It's not trivial, it's fundamental. Gottschall says, we are, as a species, addicted to story. Know that about yourself.
Okay, so recognize that innate pull.
Exactly. 2, the self is a story, not a fact. Your identity, it's a narrative, one you tell yourself and one you can change. This means you have agency. You can revise, rewrite, reimagine your life story. It's liberating, but also a reminder that memory isn't perfect. The self is a story. Simple, but huge implications. 3, fiction builds and breaks. Empathy. Stories are empathy machines. They let us walk in others' shoes. But they can also be used to divide, manipulate key biases. So be enchanted, yes, but also be critical. Be wary. As he says, the stories we consume shape our beliefs, often more powerfully than facts. Choose wisely.
That puts responsibility on us as consumers, definitely.
Huge responsibility. 4, conflict and trouble are essential. Stories run on trouble. Life runs on trouble too, often. Fiction, dreams, daydreams, they're rehearsals for life's difficulties. Story is trouble, he writes. Story is character, facing trouble and trying to overcome it. Growth happens in the plot. So when things get tough, remember you're in your own story. And number 5, whoever controls this story controls reality. This is maybe the biggest one. Narrative is power. It shapes everything from how you see yourself, who am I, to how societies function, who belongs. Understanding how stories shape reality, collective and personal, is a critical skill today. Story, he argues, puts things back together after they fall apart.
That's a fantastic toolkit, really practical ways to think about this. So, to wrap up, you are a storytelling animal. You live in a world literally built on stories, whether you always notice it or not. And maybe here's a final thought to take with you. To really be free, you kind of have to learn to see the strings, see how stories are working on you, the good ways and the bad. Because honestly, if you don't actively write your own story, or at least critically engage with the ones thrown at you, well, you risk just being a character in someone else's script. So maybe try to be a story guardian. Be watchful, be curious, question the narratives, the ones out there and the ones inside your own head. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.